The second, Wish a Story by Lisa Green, Chapter 1. The birthday I was never the kind of woman who believed in wishes. 40 years of marriage to Dr. Alan Reed had taught me that hoping for anything only led to disappointment. Hope was a luxury I could not afford. Not when every day of those 40 years felt like a small death. Not when 35 of those years my husband had looked at me like I was a stain on his otherwise perfect life. But on my 65th birthday, something inside me shifted. It was the first birthday that truly belonged to me. Alan had been dead for 6 months. A sudden heart attack took him while he was grading papers in his study. I found him slumped over his desk, his reading glasses still perched on his nose, a red pen clutched in his hand. The paramedics said he died instantly. I said nothing. For 6 months, I had been learning how to breathe again. Every day, I watched the soap operas Alan used to mock. I ate the street food he always called junk. I stayed up late and slept in late. I left the dishes in the sink overnight. Small rebellions, but they were mine. And on my 65th birthday, I ordered myself a durian crepe cake. The delivery boy looked at me strangely when he handed over the box. Durian is not everyone's taste. The smell alone could clear a room. But I loved it. I had always loved it. Alan had forbidden me from bringing it into the house. I set the cake on the small table in my living room, lit a single candle, and sat down to celebrate my first birthday alone. That was when the phone rang. "Mom, today is Dad's 67th birthday." My daughter's voice came through the receiver like a stranger's. We had not spoken in months. Not since she had screamed at me at Alan's funeral, accusing me of not grieving properly, of not loving him enough. "Don't forget to fry up some of those little yellow croakers he liked," she continued, as if we talked every day. "Oh, and Uncle and Aunt already went to the cemetery, so you do not need to go. Otherwise, Dad might not be happy down there." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the absolute stillness of the room. The durian cake grew warm on the table. The candle flickered. Outside, the city hummed with evening traffic. Inside, I was drowning in silence. After a long time, I lit the candle again. Just the one. And I made the only wish I had ever truly meant in my entire life. If I could live again, I would never want to have anything to do with Alan Reed. I closed my eyes and blew out the flame. Chapter 2. The day everything changed when I opened my eyes again, someone was patting my back. "Lisa, Lisa. You silly girl, what are you daydreaming for? Hurry up and pick one to take home." I jerked my head up so fast I nearly gave myself whiplash. Aunt Mary's dark face hovered inches from mine. Her white smile was bright against the afternoon sun. Behind her, the low houses of my village stretched out in neat rows. Their gray tile roofs were covered in patches of moss. The air smelled of damp earth and wild grass, and something cooking in a neighbor's kitchen. I knew this place. I knew this day. My heart stopped. "Lisa, you hear me, girl?" Aunt Mary waved a hand in front of my face. "The students are waiting. Pick one to take home." The students. I turned my head slowly, afraid of what I would see. And there they were. A group of young people standing in the village square, luggage at their feet, looking lost and uncomfortable. They wore simple cotton clothes. Their hair was cut short in the style of the time. Some looked tired from the journey. Others looked around with curiosity. 20 students in total. Only 2 were girls. I knew this day. I had lived it before, 40 years ago in another life. It was the spring of 1978, less than a year after the college entrance exams had been reinstated. The young people who had once been sent to the countryside during the Cultural Revolution were finally making their way back to the cities. But first, they had fieldwork to complete. Our village, nestled in a remote valley with unique geological formations, had been chosen by the university for their geological exploration students. The dorms prepared for them had been destroyed by a mudslide 3 days ago. The village chief had asked every family with intact homes to take in one student. In my previous life, I had come late to help with the cleaning and preparations. By the time I arrived, only one student remained unclaimed. A quiet-looking young man with honest eyes and a gentle smile. Alan Reed. That was how it began. 40 years of marriage. 35 years of his quiet resentment. One lifetime of regret. Not this time. I scanned the crowd quickly and spotted Aunt Mary heading toward one of the two female students. A girl with short hair and a determined set to her jaw. I recognized her instantly. Lucy Miller. In my previous life, Lucy would become Alan's colleague for decades. She was sharp, outspoken, and fiercely loyal. When the rumors about Alan and Sharon White spread through the Institute like wildfire, Lucy was the only one who stood up for me. The only one who spoke on my behalf when everyone else looked away. I hurried over and grabbed Aunt Mary's sleeve. "Auntie, my dad is still out getting supplies and will not be back for a while. Can you let this sister stay with me instead?" Aunt Mary hesitated. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She knew my father had raised me alone after my mother died. She also knew he had been worried about my marriage prospects. I was 22, practically an old maid by village standards. He had been dropping hints about finding me a husband for months. But after a moment, she nodded. "All right, but you should ask her if she is okay with it." I turned to Lucy Miller. She was taller than me, with sharp features and curious eyes that assessed everything quickly. She looked like the kind of person who did not waste time on pretense. "Would you like to stay at my home?" I asked directly. "It is just me and my father. The room is small but clean." Lucy studied me for a long moment. I could see her weighing her options, calculating. Then she smiled. A real smile, not the polite kind. "That sounds fine," she said. "Thank you." She picked up her luggage. A worn canvas bag and a small wooden box. Then she followed me without another word. Chapter 3. The road home, the walk to my house took 15 minutes. Every step felt like a dream. The mud clung to our shoes. The mountain air smelled of wild grass and distant rain. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the path. I had walked this road thousands of times in my previous life. As a girl, as a young bride, as a woman carrying groceries home from the bus stop. But I had never walked it like this, with a second chance burning in my chest. "You are quiet," Lucy said after a while. "I am thinking." "About what?" I almost laughed. About how I had lived 40 years of a miserable marriage and was now back at the beginning. About how I had wished on a birthday candle, and somehow, impossibly, my wish had come true. About how I was never, ever going to let Alan Reed ruin my life again. "About the future," I said. Lucy nodded like that made sense. "My sister says I think too much about the future. She says I should focus on the present." "Your sister sounds wise." "She sounds annoying." Lucy grinned. "But she is not wrong." We walked in comfortable silence after that. Lucy was not the type to fill empty space with meaningless chatter, and I was grateful for that. My heart was still pounding from the shock of waking up in my 22-year-old body. Back in the village where I was born. Back before everything went wrong. When we reached the house, I led Lucy to the room I had cleaned just yesterday. Or rather, the version of me from this timeline had cleaned it yesterday. The bed was made with fresh cotton sheets. The window was open to let in the breeze. A small vase of wildflowers sat on the wooden table. "It is not much," I said, "but it is clean." Lucy set down her luggage and looked around. Her eyes lingered on the wildflowers, and something softened in her expression. "It is perfect," she said. "Thank you, miss. Just call me Lisa." "Lisa," she repeated, nodding. "I am Lucy. Lucy Miller." We smiled at each other, and for a moment, I felt something I had not felt in decades. Hope. Chapter 4. The first encounter after settling Lucy in, I went to the front of the house where my father ran the village's only general store. It was a small shop. Just a few shelves of goods and a wooden counter. But it was enough. My father had built it from nothing after leaving the army. He used his discharge money and years of careful savings. He was a good man, honest and hardworking. He had raised me alone after my mother passed away when I was 7. He turned down 7 or 8 women who wanted to become my stepmother because he did not want anyone else raising his daughter. I was sitting behind the counter, lost in thought, when I heard the door creak open. "Excuse me, can I get a bar of soap?" The voice cut through me like a blade. I froze. My hands went cold. My heart stopped. then started again, pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Slowly, I looked up. Alan Reed stood in the doorway. He was younger than I had ever seen him. 22 years old, clean-shaven. Dark hair fell across his forehead. His eyes still held the softness of youth. He wore a simple gray jacket and canvas trousers. A small notebook was tucked into his pocket. In his hand, he held a few crumpled bills. He was beautiful. I had forgotten that. In my previous life, I had fallen for that face, for those gentle eyes, for the quiet way he spoke. I had thought he was different from the other men in the village. Educated, refined, kind. I had thought he would save me from a life of poverty and obscurity. I had been so wrong. When I just stared at him silently, he waved his hand in front of my face. "Hello. Are you all right?" The scent of soap mingled with the damp air from outside. I snapped back to my senses, reached under the counter, and picked up a bar of soap. I handed it to him without a word. He took it, but he did not leave. His eyes lingered on my face with an expression I recognized too well. Confusion, curiosity, and something else. Something that, in my previous life, I had mistaken for interest. "What is your name?" he asked. "Have we met before? You look familiar." I kept my expression cold. "There are plenty of people who look like me. My name has nothing to do with you." Alan blinked, clearly taken aback by my tone. He opened his mouth as if to say something else, then thought better of it. He placed the money on the counter, picked up the soap, and left the shop. But I could feel his eyes on me as he walked away. He glanced back every few steps, his brow furrowed like he was trying to solve a puzzle. After the door closed behind him, I pressed my hand to my chest. My heart was still racing, but not from attraction. From fear. For one terrible moment, I had been terrified that Alan, like me, had also been reborn. That he remembered everything. That our second chance would be just as miserable as the first. But then I remembered what he had said the day before he died. "Lisa Green, the biggest regret of my life is marrying you. You ruined the future I should have had with Ava." No. If he had been reborn with his memories, he would not be looking at me with curiosity. He would be looking at me with disgust. He would be running in the opposite direction. And maybe, I thought bitterly, that would have been better for both of us. Chapter 5. My father's hopes. 3 days later, my father came home. He arrived late in the evening. His cart was loaded with supplies from the city. The road connecting our village to the outside world had been washed out by heavy rain, so he had been gone longer than expected. His clothes were muddy. His face was tired, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. Lucy had already gone to bed, so I helped my father unload the cart in silence. We worked together the way we always had. Efficient, wordless, comfortable. When everything was stacked in the storage room, he wiped his hands on his trousers and looked at me. "I heard some of those college boys who came this time are pretty good-looking," he said. I sighed. "Here it comes. You had better seize the opportunity," he continued, ignoring my expression. "Try to settle something before they leave. My mother had passed away when I was young, and my father had never remarried. He had turned down every woman who offered to become my stepmother. He chose, instead, to raise me on his own. Maybe that was why he always saw me as a child. Or maybe he just could not bear the thought of me marrying and leaving home too soon. But now I was 22, and all the girls my age in the village were already married with children. My father had started to worry. In my previous life, I had let him worry. I had let him push me toward Alan Reed. I had let him believe that an educated man from the city would be a good match for his simple country daughter. I had been too young, too naive, too desperate for love to see the truth. Not this time. "Dad," I said carefully, "I heard the food factory in town is hiring soon. I would like to give it a try. I am not in a hurry to get married." His face fell. "We do not need you to make money. You are not getting any younger. If you keep waiting, people will start talking. Let them talk." He stared at me, surprised by my tone. In my previous life, I had never talked back to him. I had been a dutiful daughter, obedient and quiet. But I was not that girl anymore. I was a 65-year-old woman, trapped in a 22-year-old body. I had learned that obedience only led to regret. "Dad," I said, stepping forward and burying myself in his arms the way I used to when I was a child. "Life is long. I do not want to marry too soon. I want to see how far I can go on my own." He was silent for a long time. His hand came up to rest on my back. Hesitant at first, then firm. "You have changed," he said quietly. "I have grown up." He pulled back and looked at my face, searching for something. Whatever he found seemed to satisfy him, because he nodded slowly. "All right," he said finally. "You can try. But if you change your mind—" "I will not." He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. He was worried about me. He had always been worried about me. I wished I could tell him everything. About the life I had lived. About the man who had broken me. About the daughter who had grown to despise me. About the loneliness that had consumed 40 years. But I could not. So I just hugged him tighter and whispered, "Thank you, Dad." Chapter 6. Building a new life. The next few weeks passed in a blur. With Lucy's help, I learned everything I could about the food factory's hiring requirements and testing process. Her older sister worked there, and she was able to get me copies of old exams and application forms. I studied every night after the shop closed. I reviewed math problems and practiced my reading comprehension by lamplight. Lucy was surprised by how quickly I learned. "You are faster than most of my classmates," she said one evening, watching me solve a complex equation. "Where did you learn this?" "Self-study," I said. That was not entirely a lie. In my previous life, I had spent countless hours helping my daughter with her homework. I had relearned subjects I had forgotten years ago. The knowledge had stayed with me, buried under decades of domestic drudgery. "You should take the college entrance exam," Lucy said. I looked up from my paper. "What? The college entrance exam?" "You are smart enough, Lisa. Smarter than half the students I know. Why work in a factory when you could go to university?" I stared at her, my heart pounding. In my previous life, the thought had never crossed my mind. I had been too busy being a wife, a mother, a daughter-in-law. I had never considered that I could be something more. But Lucy was right. I could take the exam. I could go to university. I could build a life that had nothing to do with Alan Reed, or Sharon White, or any of the people who had made me feel small. "I will think about it," I said. Lucy grinned. "That is not a no." I also kept my distance from the university students. All of them except Lucy. Whenever I saw Alan Reed walking through the village, I turned the other way. When he came to the shop, my father waited on him while I stayed in the back. I did not want to give fate any chance to repeat itself. But fate, I was learning, had a cruel sense of humor. Chapter 7. The rat bite. 20 days after my rebirth, Lucy came running home visibly flustered. "What is wrong?" I asked, setting down the vegetables I had been washing. "One of the male students suddenly has a fever," she said breathlessly. "A high fever. He is delirious. I brought some medicine with me when I came here. Let us see if any of it helps." Before I could respond, she grabbed a small bag from her room and hurried out the door. A bad feeling crept into my chest. I glanced at the calendar on the wall. Sure enough, it was the exact same day that Alan Reed had fallen ill in my previous life. In my past life, I had been the one to find him. I had noticed something was wrong when he woke up that morning. His face was flushed. His breathing was shallow. His skin was hot to the touch. My father and I had rushed him to the hospital together. We held him upright in the back of the cart as we bounced over the rough road. That was when I had started to fall for him. His vulnerability. His gratitude. The way he had looked at me like I was the only person in the world who cared. I had nursed him back to health. I had stayed by his bedside for 3 days and 3 nights. But this time, Alan was staying at old Grandma Senning's house. She was elderly and lived with her unmarried, disabled son. Neither of them was capable of taking care of themselves, let alone noticing when a young man fell ill. I forced myself to push the thought aside. It was not my problem anymore. I did not owe Alan anything. Not after what he had done to me. When Lucy came back later that evening, she brought news of Alan's condition. "Good thing the villagers had experience," she said, shaking her head. "They realized he had been bitten by a rat." The doctor said if we had been even a little later getting him to the hospital, it might have been too late. I nodded silently, saying nothing. He is lucky to be alive, Lucy continued. Rat bites can be deadly. The infection spreads fast. Another hour and she trailed off, shuddering. I did not wish Alan dead. I was not that cruel, but I also did not feel obligated to save him. Not anymore. Not after everything. Chapter 8. The interview the next day was the food factory's recruitment day. I woke up before dawn. I dressed in my cleanest clothes. I took the bus into the city. The written exam was held in a large hall with dozens of other applicants. All of us were bent over our papers, in nervous concentration. I answered every question carefully. I drew on weeks of studying and the faint memories of my previous life. When I finished, I walked around the city for a while. It was strange to see it again. The narrow streets, the old buildings, the bicycles weaving through traffic. In my previous life, I had watched this city grow and change over 40 years. Now it was small and unfamiliar, still recovering from decades of stagnation. I took the bus back to the village in the afternoon. When I got off at the stop, I saw a figure waiting by the road. Alan Reed. His face was pale. His body was weak and unsteady. He was still recovering from the rat bite, and it showed. Dark circles under his eyes. His clothes hung loose on his frame. But when he saw me step off the bus, his eyes lit up with something I could not quite identify. I gave him a quick glance, then looked away and started walking home. "Lisa," he called after me. "You came back earlier today, did you not?" I kept walking. "You knew what was going to happen to me." His voice was hoarse, desperate. "Why did you not warn me? Do you have any idea I almost died yesterday?" I stopped. Slowly, I turned to look at him. "Are you talking to me? Who else would I be talking to?" I stared at him, keeping my expression blank. "I think you have mistaken me for someone else. My name is Hua. Everyone in the village calls me Hua. It was a gamble. In my previous life, Alan had called me Lisa in the early years of our marriage. Softly, affectionately. But after he fell for Sharon White, he stopped using it altogether. He called me by my full name, Lisa Green, or addressed me coldly as Mrs. Reed. If Alan had been reborn with his memories, he would know my name was Lisa. But he would not know the nickname my father had given me. Hua, short for the wildflowers that grew on the mountain behind our house. Only the villagers knew that name. Alan stared at me. His mouth opened and closed. He looked confused, uncertain, desperate. But you look just like her," he muttered. "Like who?" "My wife." I raised an eyebrow. "You are married," he flinched. "Not yet. I mean, not now, but in the future." I shook my head slowly, this time with pity. "You are still sick, are you not? That rat bite must have affected your brain. You should go back to the hospital." I turned and walked away before he could say another word. Behind me, I heard him call my name. Lisa, not Hua. But I did not look back. Chapter 9. The written exam results were posted a week later. I took the bus into the city again. My heart pounded as I scanned the list of names on the factory gate. There were dozens of names, written in neat black ink on a large sheet of paper. I read them once, twice, 3 times. My eyes skipped over the unfamiliar characters. And then I saw it. Lai Hua, candidate number 047. Passed. I let out a breath I did not know I had been holding. My knees felt weak. My hands were shaking. I had done it. I had actually done it. The interview was scheduled for 2 days later. When I got home, I brought some pastries I had bought in the city to Lucy's room. I wanted to thank her and her sister for their help. Lucy accepted them awkwardly, her cheeks slightly pink. "Lisa, you are too polite. Tomorrow, I will call my sister and ask her what to expect during the interview." "That is exactly what I was hoping you would say," I told her with a smile. What I did not expect was that when Lucy made that call, Alan Reed overheard her. Chapter 10. Confrontation. On the morning of the interview, Alan intercepted me on my way to the bus stop. He stepped out from behind a large banyan tree, blocking my path. His face was still pale, but he looked stronger than he had a week ago. The color had returned to his cheeks. His eyes were clearer. But there was something wild in his gaze, something desperate and unhinged. "Lisa Green," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Why are you pretending you do not know me? Things were not like this last time." I tried to step around him, but he moved to block me again. "You have never worked a day in your life," he continued. "You will not be able to handle this kind of job. You are just a country woman with a high school education. What makes you think you can compete with people from the city?" His voice was loud enough to draw attention from the people already on the bus. I could feel their curious eyes on me. My face grew hot. "Are you out of your mind?" I shoved him back hard. "What nonsense are you talking about? If you keep harassing me, I will call the police and report you for indecent behavior." In those days, being accused of harassment was a serious crime. Even though Alan had not actually done anything inappropriate, my firm tone and the presence of so many witnesses left him no way to defend himself. People who had assumed we were close immediately changed their expressions. An old woman on the bus shook her head disapprovingly. A young man stepped forward, as if ready to intervene. Alan's face went red. He opened his mouth, closed it, then stepped aside, swallowing his anger. I boarded the bus without looking back. Chapter 11. A new beginning. I passed the interview. I completed all the paperwork for my new job. The food factory had dorms for employees, but new hires were not eligible to stay there yet. Fortunately, with Lucy's sister helping me, I managed to rent a small room near the factory. The rent was cheap, just a few yuan a month. Even after paying it, I still had plenty left from my salary. Once everything was settled, I called my father to tell him my new address in the city. The moment I hung up, I went straight to the night school to enroll. As soon as I signed my name on the admission form, I felt lighter, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I had officially stepped onto a completely different path from my previous life. No more waiting for a husband to come home. No more composting in the yard and being humiliated for it. No more watching my daughter grow to despise me. I was free. On my first day off, I carried a bottle of wine I had bought for my father and went home to visit. When he saw me, his face broke into a smile. "Look at you," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You are glowing." I was. The work at the factory was hard. 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, standing on my feet until they ached. But I did not mind. Every day, I learned something new. Every night, I went to classes. I was tired, but it was a good tired. The kind that came from building something for myself, not from taking care of everyone else. My father was so happy to see me that he had a couple of extra drinks with dinner. After I washed the dishes and came out into the courtyard, I saw him leaning back in his chair, gazing up at the moonlight. "Do you see that?" he murmured softly, as if speaking to my late mother. "Our daughter has grown up. Do not worry. As long as I am still here, I will not let anything hurt her." Lucy, who was leaning against the doorframe, heard him and whispered to me, "Your dad is the most devoted man I have ever met. I hope someday I can find someone who loves me that much." I smiled but did not respond. Once, I had wished for the same thing. That was why I had been so happy when Alan Reed and I first confessed our feelings for each other. I had been so sure that love would last forever. When I later discovered his betrayal, I had refused to believe it. Even though my father's devotion to my mother had made him the subject of gossip for years, I had grown up surrounded by that kind of love and loyalty. Never once did I imagine that my own marriage would crumble so quickly after it began. But I was not going to make the same mistake twice. Chapter 12. The night school encounter. I thought that once Alan finished his internship, our paths would finally diverge for good. I was wrong. One evening after my night school class, I ran into him by chance at the school gate. The night was cold. The sky was clear and full of stars. Most of the students had already left, hurrying home to escape the chill. I had stayed behind to ask the teacher a few questions about the upcoming exam. By the time I stepped outside, the street was nearly empty. The moment Alan saw me, he strode toward me. His eyes burned with something between anger and desperation. "You are still going to class, Lisa Green," he demanded. "What are you trying to do?" I looked around. The street lamps cast long shadows on the pavement, But there was no one nearby. No witnesses. No one to hear. With no one around to see us, Alan dropped all pretense of restraint. "Just admit it," he said, grabbing my arm. "You were reborn too, were you not?" I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. His grip was tight, almost painful. "Let go of me. Not until you tell me the truth." I jerked my arm free. "Fine. Yes. I was reborn." "So what?" Alan froze. His eyes widened. For a moment, he looked almost relieved, like he had finally found someone who understood. Someone who shared his secret. But that relief quickly twisted into something uglier. "You regretted marrying me in the last life." I continued, my voice cold. "And I regretted marrying you just as much. Since we have both been given another chance, you should go chase whatever it is you missed out on instead of trying over and over to make yourself matter to me." "How can you say that?" His voice shook with anger. "What right do you have to regret marrying me? I never made you work a single day. I provided for you. I fed you. I sheltered you. You never suffered a bit. You are just a country woman who never even went to college. And yet, my students called you professor's wife. You got your reputation and your comfort because of me. What right do you have to regret it?" His face was red. His neck was stiff with pride. He looked exactly like the man I had spent 40 years with. Arrogant, entitled, blind to his own flaws. I laughed. It was a bitter sound, hollow and sharp. "Let me tell you something, Alan Reed. In our previous life, I was nothing but your family's maid. I took care of your child, your parents, your home. I did everything for you, and you gave me nothing but contempt." His face paled slightly, but he did not look away. "Do you remember when you started giving half your salary to Sharon White?" I continued. "While your own parents, your own daughter, and I ate thin porridge and coarse corn buns for a whole week. Do you remember that, Alan?" "I was only helping them through hard times," he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. "You were having an affair. For years. Decades. You gave Sharon and her child everything, while your own family went without. And when your daughter grew up, she started to resent me for staying with you. She called me small-minded. She said I only cared about our little home. She said she wanted to be like Sharon. Confident. Admired. Radiant." My voice cracked, but I did not stop. "I wasted my entire life on you, Alan. I refused to divorce you because I wanted you and Sharon to spend the rest of your lives unable to stand openly side by side. I was bitter and angry and broken. I let that poison consume me." I took a step closer to him, my eyes boring into his. "But not this time. This time, I am going to live my own life. I am going to work and study and build something for myself. And you are going to stay away from me." Without waiting for his response, I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard him shout something. My name, I think. But I did not look back. Chapter 13. The gossip from that night on, my days fell into a steady rhythm. Work. Study. Rest. It had been decades since I had last studied, and I had forgotten most of what I had learned in high school. But I refused to give up. During my breaks at the factory, I reviewed my notes. On the bus to and from work, I memorized vocabulary words. At night, I stayed up late doing practice exercises. Lucy was my lifeline. Whenever I struggled with a concept, she explained it to me patiently. She broke it down until I understood. She lent me her old textbooks and quizzed me on the material. She believed in me, even when I did not believe in myself. I had no intention of staying at the food factory forever. My goal was to earn and save enough money to bring my father to the city. During my breaks, I quietly gathered information about prices, rental costs, and potential business spots. There was an open market not far from the factory, an ideal place for my father to set up a small stall. Life in the village was not bad, but in my last life, my father had never truly known comfort, even to his dying day. He had died in an accident on his way to visit me. Around the same time, I lost the baby I was carrying. Now that I had another chance, I refused to waste it. During this period, Lucy brought me plenty of gossip. She loved to talk, and I loved to listen. It was a good arrangement. "Remember that guy who got bitten by a rat? she asked one day. Her eyes sparkled with the pleasure of sharing news. I nodded silently. No idea what has gotten into him. Lucy continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially. A while ago, he insisted on joining a newly formed geological exploration team in the neighboring province. He had only been there for less than a month before he suddenly demanded to come back. Our teacher had originally arranged a good position for him, but now every time his name comes up, the teacher just shakes his head. The place Lucy mentioned happened to be Sharon White's hometown. So, Alan was trying to recreate the past. He was planning to meet Sharon earlier this time, hoping to change the course of their relationship. But for some reason, he had ended up coming back instead. A few days later, Lucy shared more gossip. Piecing it together with my memories from my previous life, I finally understood the full story. In my last life, when Alan met Sharon, he was already somewhat accomplished. A respected professor with a bright future. Sharon, ignoring the fact that he was married, had approached him willingly, hoping to secure herself a better life. But in this life, Alan was nothing more than a freshly graduated college student. No power, no money, no influence. When he found Sharon, she happened to be walking with another man. Her childhood sweetheart. Alan did not think much of it. He assumed Sharon would still act toward him as she had in the past. Gentle, charming, receptive. What he did not know was that the man was someone she genuinely cared about. Alan's sudden intrusion ruined their rare chance to spend time together. When he tried to persuade Sharon to leave with him, she refused. Both she and her companion harshly rebuked him. Alan believed Sharon just did not recognize him yet, that she had not seen the brilliance he would one day show in his work. So when Sharon officially joined the exploration team, Alan approached her again. He tried to make a grand impression. But this time, Sharon reported him to their supervisors. The newly formed exploration team was small. Everyone there knew one another. Naturally, they could not stand Alan's arrogance or self-importance. He was ostracized to the point where he could no longer function there. Eventually, his university instructors had to transfer him back. I could not help but feel a small, bitter satisfaction at the news. Chapter 14. The winter snow. That winter, several snowfalls blanketed the city. The roads were icy. Everyone walked carefully to avoid slipping. Worried that my father might fall on his way to pick me up from night school, I told him not to come. I said I would walk home with a classmate who lived nearby. After class that day, I heard people whispering that someone was standing outside the school gate, nearly frozen solid, refusing to leave. My heart tightened. I feared it might be my stubborn father. I hurried outside, pushing through the crowd of students and teachers. When I caught sight of the man standing there, snow piled thickly on his shoulders and head, I exhaled in relief. It was not my father. I was just about to head home when I heard someone call my name. I turned around. The half-frozen man was struggling to walk toward me. His movements were stiff and clumsy on the ice. His face was almost blue with cold. When he was about 2 meters away, I finally recognized him. Alan Reed. Snow had gathered thickly on his shoulders. Even his eyebrows and eyelashes were crusted with ice. His lips were blue. His face was nearly gray. He looked like a corpse that had somehow learned to walk. "What do you want now?" I asked coldly. Alan rubbed his face hard. His breath was shaky. "Lisa, please. Let us talk. Just for a few minutes." It was freezing, and the last thing I wanted was to waste time on him in the cold. I did not even bother to look at him again. I turned and started walking home. Alan tried to step forward to grab my hand, but the ground was slick with ice. He slipped and fell hard. His body hit the ground with a sickening thud. He slid several feet before coming to a stop. His face was twisted in pain. Some passers-by rushed over to help him up, but he could barely stand. He clutched his lower back with a grimace. "Lisa Green," he stammered through chattering teeth. "Are you not going to help me?" But when he looked up, I was already gone. So far down the street that not even my shadow was visible. Chapter 15. The broken tailbone. The next day, night school was closed due to the weather. So I went to help out at my father's snack shop. Lucy Miller came by after work. She brought her usual gossip, and a bag of oranges from her sister. "Remember that classmate who got bitten by a rat?" she said with a grin, settling onto a stool behind the counter. "Guess what? He is in trouble again. He fell and broke his tailbone. He is in the hospital right now." I remembered hearing the loud thud the night before. I had guessed Alan must have slipped. I had not expected the fall to be that serious. "Broke his tailbone?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "That is what I heard. Lucy bit into an orange. Juice dripped down her chin. Honestly, that guy must have some kind of bad luck following him around. First the rat bite, now this. A person that unlucky either offended something supernatural, or there is something seriously wrong with him. I am definitely keeping my distance from now on." Her words caught my attention. In my last life, Alan had been despicable in love, but brilliant in his field. His colleagues and students all respected him. He had published groundbreaking research. He had mentored dozens of successful geologists. He had built a reputation that spanned the entire country. If this life's, Alan had followed the same path. Humble, steady, focused, he would have reached the same heights again. But ever since the rat bite, he had changed. During fieldwork, he constantly interrupted his teachers. He always showed off and contradicted them. He was completely different from the modest young man he used to be. He had even made a fuss about joining another exploration team, and then pulled strings to get himself transferred back. Many people were fed up with him. In my previous life, Alan had become one of the most respected geological experts in the country. A man at the very top of the field. With his knowledge and experience from the future, it was only natural that he could not resist commenting on the outdated exploration methods of this era. But he was using the wrong approach. Now he was nothing more than a fresh graduate with no real experience. He could not treat his professors the way he used to treat his students. He could not demand respect that he had not earned. For the first time, I truly felt grateful for my second chance. My life was steadily getting better. Alan seemed to be spiraling toward the end he probably deserved. Chapter 16. A wonderful New Year that year, my father and I had a wonderful New Year's celebration. He was happy because life finally held something new. Something to look forward to. The snack shop was doing well. Better than either of us had expected. Customers lined up every morning for his fresh noodles and dumplings. The money was good. For the first time in years, my father did not have to worry about making ends meet. I was happy because I knew I had not wasted the miracle of my second chance. Every day, I woke up grateful. Every night, I went to sleep with a sense of accomplishment. We stayed up late on New Year's Eve. We ate dumplings and drank tea. My father told stories about his time in the army. His eyes were distant with memory. I listened and laughed and tried not to think about the life I had left behind. After the holiday, there were only a few months left before the college entrance exams. Even on my rest days, my father refused to let me help at the shop. "You focus on your studies," he said firmly. "I can handle the business. You just worry about passing that exam." So I studied. I studied until my eyes burned and my head ached. I memorized formulas and historical dates and classical Chinese poetry. I filled notebook after notebook with practice essays and math problems. Lucy quizzed me every chance she got. "What is the square root of 144? She would ask suddenly, and I would answer without looking up from my book. 12. What year did the Opium War start? 1840. Who wrote Dream of the Red Chamber? Cao Zukin. She grinned. "You are ready." I hoped she was right. Chapter 17. The encounter on the street one day, while wandering around the city during a rare break from studying, I passed by the house I had lived in for so many years in my previous life. It was a large courtyard house on a quiet street. Gray brick wall. Red wooden gate. In my previous life, I had lived there for over 30 years. I had raised my daughter there. I had watched Alan's parents grow old and die there. I had been miserably, desperately unhappy there. When I looked up, my eyes met those of a woman stepping out the front door. It was Mrs. Reid, Alan's mother. She was much younger than I remembered her. In my previous life, I had watched her fade away, consumed by grief after her eldest son died. But here, now, Alan's older brother was still alive. She looked healthy and at peace. Her face was unlined. Her hair was still dark. She wore a simple blue jacket and carried a basket of vegetables. She looked at me curiously. Her head tilted slightly. There was something in her expression. Recognition, maybe. Or confusion. As if she had seen me before, but could not remember where. I quickly looked away and kept walking without a word. Behind me, I heard her say something to a neighbor, but I did not turn around. Chapter 18. The exam night school lessons were particularly advanced in the final months before the exam. The teachers pushed us hard. They piled on homework and practice tests until we could barely keep our eyes open. When the teachers could not answer certain questions, usually the more complex math problems, I turned to Lucy instead. Lucy had a gift for explanation. She could break down the most complicated concepts into simple, understandable pieces. She never made me feel stupid for asking questions. She never sighed impatiently when I did not understand something the first time. Maybe it was because I had poured everything into studying. But up until the exams, I did not see Alan once. Not at the factory. Not at night school. Not in the village. It was as if he had vanished from the face of the earth. With Lucy's help, my grasp of the material grew stronger and more confident. By the time the exam rolled around, I felt ready. During the 3 days of the college entrance exam, I felt almost detached, as if I were floating through it all. The questions came easily, not because they were simple, but because I had prepared so thoroughly. I wrote until my hand cramped. I checked my answers twice. I turned in each paper with quiet confidence. Only after I finished the final test did it truly hit me. I had actually done it. I had taken the college entrance exam. Chapter 19. The score back when Lucy Miller took the college entrance exam, she had been remarkably good at estimating her own score. Her predictions were almost always within a few points of the actual results. Even though a few years had passed, I could not find anyone more reliable. So I went to her for help again. Her mind was still sharp and quick. I remembered clearly every answer I had written. I had practiced the exam so many times in my head that the questions were burned into my memory. Together, Lucy and I went through each question twice, without pause. When we finished, Lucy stared at me in disbelief. "Lisa, you have improved so much. If you had taken the exam back then, you would have definitely gotten into a great university." Looking at the final score we had calculated on paper, I could not help but feel a spark of excitement. It was not perfect. There were areas where I could have done better. But it was good. Better than good. It was comparative. I smiled at her words, but I did not say anything. I knew that the version of myself from my previous life could never have achieved even half of what I had done this time. That woman had been too busy being a wife, a mother, a daughter-in-law. She had never had the chance to discover what she was capable of. It was my unwillingness to give up, and the value I placed on this second chance that drove me to work so hard to change my fate. Chapter 20. Choosing a path considering my score and the future needs of the country's development, I chose to major in finance. In my previous life, while managing an entire household on a tight budget, I had discovered my natural sensitivity to numbers. I could calculate expenses in my head faster than Alan could with a calculator. I knew exactly how much money was coming in and going out, down to the last cent. This time, I had intentionally focused on math and practiced relentlessly. I realized I truly had a talent for it. Money was not the most important thing in life. But after years of being humiliated and held back because of poverty, after watching my daughter go without, while Alan lavished money on Sharon and her child, I had become determined to make enough so that my father and I could finally live the kind of good life we had never even dared to dream of. After submitting my university application, I turned my attention back to my father's snack shop. Chapter 21. The regular customer. After observing the customers for a few days, I noticed we already had quite a few regulars. Workers from nearby factories, students from the university, families who lived in the neighborhood. The shop had become a small institution, known for its cheap prices and generous portions. I began helping my father create new menu items, dishes that were familiar but with a twist. Old favorites that had fallen out of fashion. The customers loved them. Business boomed. One afternoon, while I was cleaning up after the lunch rush, someone asked if we still had any food left to sell. I looked up and froze for a second. It was Mrs. Reed, Alan's mother. She looked older than the last time I had seen her on the street, but still healthy. Her hair was streaked with gray now. There were lines around her eyes that had not been there before, but her expression was kind. Her posture was straight. "I am sorry," I said quickly, putting on a polite smile. "We have sold out for today." Her eyes lingered on me, filled with the same mixture of confusion and familiarity I had once seen in Alan Reed's gaze when he first met me in this life. She opened her mouth as if to say something several times, then closed it again. But when she saw how busy I was, wiping down tables, stacking chairs, she stayed silent and left quietly. What I did not know then was that, after that brief encounter, Mrs. Reed dreamed about me twice. But every time she woke, she could not remember what had happened in those dreams. Only the lingering sense of loss remained. Only the feeling that she had known me somehow. In another life. In another time. Chapter 22. The admission letter finally, the letter arrived. I was accepted into my first-choice university. A prestigious school in a city, over 500 kilometers away. The program was competitive. The standards were high. And I had made it. When my father found out, he was overjoyed. He laughed and cried, and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. But I could see the reluctance in his eyes, too. The fear of letting me go so far away. The fear of being alone again. After he helped me settle into my dormitory, and we stood outside the campus gate, I pointed toward a still-developing street lined with half-finished stalls. "Dad," I said, "what if you moved your snack shop here? College students love street food, way more than the neighbors back home. You would have great business." When my father had first followed me to the city, he had left our small village store in the hands of someone he trusted. Nearly a year later, it was still running well. Even after paying the employee's salary, he was earning a solid profit each month. That success made him consider my suggestion. "It is true," he said slowly. "The shop back home does not bring in much, and it practically runs itself. But the food stand, that is your creation. If we hand it over to someone else, will it not affect our reputation?" His concern was reasonable, but I had already thought it through. I knew exactly who to entrust it to. In both my previous life and this one, Lucy Miller had helped me more than I could ever repay. After spending a full year working closely with her and her family, I had come to understand their personalities and work ethic. Her older sister's job at the food factory was stable for now, but I knew that, in a little over a decade, she would lose that job when the factory went bankrupt. I still remembered how in my previous life, Lucy once told me that after her sister was laid off, she divorced her husband and struggled to make ends meet. Lucy's sister had ended up living a miserable life, struggling to raise 2 children on her own after the divorce. Although the layoffs at the factory were still years away, I knew I could start preparing now to help them build a better future. Chapter 23. The plan Lucy's mother was actually younger than my father, but their whole family lived squeezed together in a cramped apartment. Even though both daughters had decent jobs, they still barely made ends meet. I had never been sure how to repay Lucy for everything she had done for me. But the moment I saw the small food street outside my university, an idea took shape in my mind. My mother had died young, and my father was my only family. In my previous life, he had passed away before I had even made it into college. This time, I wanted to spend as much time with him as I could. My father knew how much Lucy and her family had helped me. Finding work, preparing for exams, everything. When I told him my idea, he thought about it for a long time before finally nodding. "I have met Lucy's parents," he said. "They are good, honest people who know how to manage life. I will go talk to them myself. You should call Lucy first. See what she thinks." After putting my father on the train, I called Lucy at work. I got straight to the point and explained my plan. For a long time, she did not say anything. I thought the signal had cut off, and called her name several times before hearing her choked-up voice. "Lisa, I am just too touched." Are you really planning to let my parents take over your family's snack shop? You have no idea how much this means. My sister's little girl was seriously ill a while ago. Her husband's family never liked having a daughter. When the child got sick, they did not care at all. My parents used up all their savings just to save her life. Honestly, my dad has been out doing odd jobs these past few days to make ends meet. That only confirmed my decision. Part of the reason I had wanted to help Lucy's family was because her parents reminded me so much of my own father. They never favored sons over daughters. They treated every child with equal love and sacrifice, even if it meant living a hard life themselves. Before I could bring up the profit-sharing arrangement I had planned, Lucy spoke again. Do not worry, Lisa. My parents would never leak your family's recipes. They will just help your dad run the shop and take a normal salary. You focus on your studies. We will make sure the business keeps thriving. With Lucy acting as the bridge between us, my father quickly reached an agreement with her parents. After teaching them all his recipes and methods in detail, he handed over the shop keys to Lucy's mother. I am counting on you now, he told her. I am going to the city to be with my daughter. By the time Lucy told me about this conversation over the phone, my father was already on the train heading my way. While he had been back home, I had rented him a place in the city and prepared everything he would need for his new food stall. The cart, the utensils, the supplies. And just like that, in the first month of my university life, my father's new stall, Neighbor's Snacks, became the most popular food stand outside the campus. Chapter 24. The return of Alan Reed. I had not expected to ever see Alan Reed again. But somehow, he found out which university I was attending. One evening, as I was about to leave campus to help at the stall, he appeared at the gate and blocked my way. At first glance, I almost did not recognize him. The man standing in front of me barely resembled the one I had once spent a lifetime with. Before we married, Alan had been a clean-cut college student. Neat, polished, well-dressed. After marriage, he had never had to worry about meals, clothes, or chores. Everything was taken care of for him. Even when he grew old, he was meticulous about his appearance. A neat and proper old man who commanded respect wherever he went. But the man before me now was a wreck. His beard was unshaven. Dark circles ringed his eyes. His clothes were filthy. The collar and cuffs were stained with grime. He looked like he had not slept in days. He looked like he had given up. Lisa, he said hoarsely, his voice trembling, I was wrong. I finally understand what a bastard I was in our past life. Please forgive me. Give me another chance. I want us to live a good life together. A few days ago, I had called Lucy Miller, and she had told me about Alan Reed's recent situation. About a week earlier, a woman had shown up at his workplace looking for him. The moment they met, Alan's face had changed completely. No one knew what she said to him, but the two of them started arguing loudly right at the front entrance. Alan had already fallen out of favor with most of his colleagues. Normally, if no one reported it, the whole incident would have just blown over. But somehow, word reached the higher-ups. His supervisor, who had long been displeased with him, seized the chance to issue a disciplinary warning. Afterward, Alan completely lost control. He kept muttering to himself, "Impossible. It cannot all be fake." And then he was fired by the department head. From what Lucy told me, I could guess why Sharon White had come looking for Alan. Perhaps she had realized her childhood sweetheart was not the right man for her after all. She had always been good at manipulating men, charming them, using them, discarding them when they were no longer useful. Maybe she thought of Alan, who had once been obsessed with her, and came back to use him again. But the Alan she met this time was not the same man as before. He had no power, no money, no influence. He was a disgraced former student with a disciplinary record and a reputation for arrogance. The sudden contrast between her expectations and reality must have shattered him. Even now, as I looked at Alan standing in front of me, I could see something deeply wrong in his eyes. His spirit was unstable. His emotions were erratic. He was not the man I had married. He was not even the man I had divorced. He was a ghost of himself. Chapter 25. The confrontation glancing around at the busy street filled with passers-by, I shifted my footing slightly and said quietly, "Alan, we have both been given a second chance. Let us stop torturing each other. I already wasted one lifetime on you. This time, no matter what happens, I will never let myself get tangled up with you again." Alan suddenly let out a choked sound and struck his own face hard. The slap echoed in the evening air. "I am a bastard. It is all my fault. I did not cherish you when I should have. Lisa, what will it take for you to forgive me?" His loud voice began to draw stares from the people nearby. Students stopped to watch. A professor looked up from his newspaper. My heart sank. I could not let him destroy the life I had built for myself, the life I had worked so hard to create. If people started talking, if rumors began to spread, everything could fall apart. Just as I was trying to think of a way to end the scene, a man's voice came from behind me. "Who the hell are you? Why are you saying such disgusting things in public and slandering my girlfriend's name?" I spun around. Chris Walker stood behind me. His tall frame was silhouetted against the setting sun. He was the student council president, well-respected, well-known, and completely unexpected. His sudden appearance and his words caught me completely off guard. Alan froze. He stared at Chris before slowly turning his gaze back to me. His face went pale, then red. "Lisa Green," he said slowly, each word dripping with disbelief. "Who is he? You are my wife. How can you be involved with another man?" The semester had only just begun, and not many people at the university knew me yet. But everyone knew Chris. As the student council president and my direct superior in the student organization, he naturally drew attention wherever he went. Now, with what looked like a love triangle unfolding in public, students began to gather. Whispering, pointing, flustered and furious, I instinctively wanted Chris to stay out of it. But he stepped forward instead. He positioned himself between me and Alan. "Do not worry, Lisa," he said calmly, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "I have seen men like him before. As long as I am here, he will not lay a finger on you." Then, raising his voice so the crowd could hear, he faced Alan squarely. "You are harassing her, in public and spouting nonsense. Who exactly do you think you are?" His clear, firm tone made the onlookers murmur among themselves. The strange looks people had been giving me shifted, instantly, into disapproval directed at Alan. Alan's face flushed with anger. "Lisa Green, tell them yourself. Are you really going to pretend you do not know me?" In this life, apart from his short research stay in my village years ago, Alan and I had no connection whatsoever. No one here knew that we had once been husband and wife in another lifetime. So I widened my eyes, putting on a panicked expression, and shouted hoarsely, "I do not know you. You keep showing up and saying crazy things. What do you want from me? I told you. If you keep harassing me, I am calling the police." Chapter 26. The police, the school's security guard, who had been watching the growing crowd from his post by the gate, arrived just in time to hear me say harassment and police. Without hesitation, he turned and sprinted toward the nearby police station. Moments later, 2 officers came running back with him. Their uniforms were crisp. Their faces were serious. The moment they appeared, the noisy crowd fell silent. Alan stared at me in disbelief. "Lisa, you are serious. You would call the cops on me. I am a professor. You, a peasant woman who got lucky enough to marry me. You should be grateful. I did not need to say another word." The officers had already stepped between us. The disgusted looks from the crowd said everything that needed to be said. The moment Alan Reed shouted those words, everyone around could tell there was something seriously wrong with him. A professor. He looked like a vagrant. His clothes were filthy. His hair was unkempt. His eyes were wild. And the way he spoke. "Peasant woman. Lucky enough to marry me." It was the language of someone who had lost touch with reality. The police quickly stepped in and led him away from the crowd. But Alan kept turning his head back toward me. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Lisa, tell them to let me go. I am your husband. You cannot do this to me." Chris Walker spoke up firmly. His tone was calm but commanding. As everyone can see, this man is clearly unstable. Nothing he says can be trusted. Please, everyone, do not misunderstand or spread rumors about her. Chris was highly respected on campus. Everyone knew him. Everyone trusted him. So the moment he spoke, the tension eased. People in the crowd began murmuring their support. Do not worry, we get it. Lisa is the one being harassed here. Yet, no one is going to hold this against her. I will remember that guy's face. If he ever comes back to bother you, just shout. We will help you. As the crowd gradually dispersed, I watched Chris walking at the back. His composure, the quiet authority in his voice. It made me pause. Then he turned to me. His expression was soft but serious. Lisa, he said quietly, about what I said earlier. What do you think? I froze. I realized he was referring to the words he had used to defend me, calling me his girlfriend. My face flushed hot. I know you were just helping me, I stammered quickly. Do not worry, I will not take it the wrong way or tell anyone. He shook his head gently. He cut me off. That is not what I meant. His lips curved into a faint smile, but his gaze held an unmistakable sincerity. Lisa, from the moment I first saw you, I liked you. Would you let me have the chance to take care of you? For a moment, my heart stopped. 2 lifetimes. This was the first time anyone had confessed to me so earnestly. Alan had never said those words. Not really. He had proposed because my father pushed him, because I had nursed him back to health, because it was the convenient thing to do. But he had never looked at me the way Chris was looking at me now. I panicked a little. I was unsure what to say. My mind went blank. Seeing my awkward silence, Chris smiled again. His voice softened. You do not have to answer right now. Take your time. I can wait. Chapter 27. A new beginning. By my sophomore year, my father had managed to rent a small storefront just across from the university. The business was thriving. So thriving that he had to hire 2 extra employees to keep up with demand. Around the same time, with the help of my professors and Chris, I started a small side project, a tutoring service for students who struggled with math. It started small, just a few students meeting in the library, but it grew quickly. By the end of the semester, I had over 20 regular students. The money I earned was enough to cover my living expenses, and then some. When Chris confessed to me for the 3rd time, I finally said yes. Unlike Alan Reed, Chris respected me. He gave me space to grow. He supported me in every way he could. When I was tired, he made me tea. When I was stressed about exams, he quizzed me on the material. When I doubted myself, he reminded me of everything I had already accomplished. He never demanded. He never controlled. He was just there. Steady, reliable, warm. And slowly, cautiously, I let myself love him. Chapter 28. The end of Alan Reed. As for Alan, I heard about him through Lucy. Lucy heard about him through her contacts at the university. One day, I overheard the campus security guard mention him to a colleague. They said his family had taken him back home after the incident at the university gate. He had been in bad shape, barely eating, barely sleeping, muttering to himself about second chances and past lives. His parents, worried and exhausted, had finally sent him to a mental hospital. I did not feel sorry for him. I could not. He had made his choices. In this life and the last, he had chosen arrogance over humility, pride over love, Sharon White over his own family. And in the end, those choices had consumed him. Every tear that falls today might just be the debt of a past life. Once they made someone cry, now it is their turn to suffer. But how many tears does it take to pay for a broken promise? I did not know. And honestly, I did not care anymore. Epilogue. The second wish. 10 years later, I stood in front of a large window overlooking the city. My father was downstairs, playing with his grandchildren. Chris's children. My children. The snack shop had grown into a small restaurant chain, managed by Lucy's family, with locations across the province. My tutoring service had grown into an educational company that helped rural students prepare for the college entrance exam. I had everything I had never dared to dream of. And yet, sometimes, late at night, I still thought about that birthday wish, about the candle flickering in the darkness, about the words I had spoken with such certainty. If I could live again, I would never want to have anything to do with Alan Reed. The wish had come true, but it had given me so much more than that. It had given me a second chance to be someone new. Not just someone different from Alan, but someone better than the woman I had been. I had learned that regrets were not chains. They were lessons. And if you were lucky enough to get a second chance, you did not waste it on bitterness or revenge. You built something better. Chris came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, his voice soft. I leaned back against him and smiled. "Nothing," I said. "Everything." Outside, the sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Somewhere in another life, a woman named Lisa Green was still trapped in a miserable marriage, still composting in her yard, still watching her daughter grow to despise her. But not here. Not now. Here now I was free. The end.